Good evening. Thank you. I'm really not worth applauding, but I appreciate it. Welcome everyone to the YIVO Institute for Jewish Research. My name is Eddy Portnoy, and I'm the academic advisor and the director of exhibitions here. For those who are unfamiliar with the YIVO, we're a unique institution for the contemplation, exploration, and celebration of Yiddish language and Eastern European Jewish culture. Well, YIVO thanks you. I can only suggest that you make a donation. YIVO's library and archives contain over 24 million documents and artifacts and approximately 300,000 books. Scholars from around the world come to YIVO to perform their research using these resources. Among these materials are items like original manuscripts of Sholem Aleichem and Isaac Bashevis Singer, as well as original play scripts, programs, posters, and costumes from the Yiddish theater. We have, among many, many other things, the archives of Grossingers. Our collections also include Yiddish folklore, music, literature, comedy, and more, as well as a choice archive of Yiddish erotica. It's the one thing you were all waiting for. In addition, we offer many classes on Yiddish language and culture, exhibitions and public programs like this one, where we aim to bridge the worlds of Jewish culture with our vast library and archival collections. And if you go to yivo.org/comedy, you can sign up for our brand spanking new and free History of Jews and Comedy in America class, which features Drew Friedman among a fair number of other people. About 8 years ago, we collaborated with Drew and his Jewseum to create an exhibit that featured stand-ups from the golden era of American comedy, which, in case you're wondering, is why we're here today, celebrating the premiere of Kevin Dougherty's new documentary film, Drew Friedman, Vermeer of the Borscht Belt. After the film, we'll have a panel featuring the film's director, Kevin Dougherty, its subject, Drew Friedman, as well as a rogues gallery of nudniks to provide commentary, including Craig Bierko, Richard Kind, Tom Leopold, and Frank Santopadre. So please stick around. Please stick around after the film for what will doubtlessly be a very boring discussion. Enjoy. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'd like to bring up our panelists. I guess I'll read their bios. We're not doing Gilbert Gottfried Colossal podcast style bios because we'll be here all night, although some of these could get a little long. Okay, please come up when I read your bio. Born in Brooklyn and raised in suburban New Jersey, Kevin Dougherty was a film and comic book fanatic from an early age. Kevin Dougherty, come on down. You're the next contestant. Kevin began his film career as a production assistant, wherever you like. Kevin began his film career as a production assistant on the film Bonfire of the Vanities. He took, actually this is my seat, sorry. You can sit anywhere but there. Sorry, yeah. Kevin began his career as a production assistant on the film Bonfire of the Vanities. He took his role so seriously that while guarding the set, he refused to let the director, Brian De Palma, enter the set without identification. As recompense for his integrity, Kevin spent the remainder of the shoot guarding an empty parking space in an underground garage. Kevin wrote and directed Fuzzball for Nickelodeon's animated series Kablam, created Juanita in the List, an early web cartoon that racked up millions of views, and produced My Cool Diner, an interactive video game released by Simon & Schuster in 19 97. Dougherty's directed music videos for The Locust, The Nervous Return, and Albatross, among other bands. He has also appeared on Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast several times to offer his scholarly analysis of The Ken Berry Wow Show and other matters of great importance. Kevin is the director of the documentary film, which you may have just seen. Craig Bierko is an award-winning actor. An award-winning actor who's appeared in dozens of television, film, and theater productions, among them Sex and the City, Boston Legal, Unreal, and The Blacklist, in films such as Cinderella Man, Scary Movie 4, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Theater productions, The Music Man, for which he was nominated for a Tony, Guys and Dolls, Matilda the Musical, and The Girl from North Country, among others. Craig is the only known Jew known to have worn a prosthetic nose. Richard Kind is an actor known for his roles. Richard is an actor known for his roles in the television shows Mad About You, Spin City, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. He can also be seen in such films... Well, you're already grabbing the mic? He can be seen in such films as... The Jews. He can be seen in such films as I Want Someone to Eat Cheese With, A Serious Man, Argo, and Beau is Afraid, among others. His voice work can be heard in films and TV shows like A Bug's Life, Cars, and Big Mouth. A highly regarded PS-87 dad, Richard could always be found in the yard at drop-off time, regaling other parents with stories of Forrest Tucker's golf game. Veteran comedy writer Tom Leopold. Yay! Tom Leopold has written for the TV shows Seinfeld, Cheers, and Will and Grace, and has worked with comedic legends such as Jonathan Winters, Bob Hope, Lucille Ball, Martin Short, Mary Tyler Moore, Carol Burnett, Billy Crystal, Chevy Chase, and Christopher Guest, among many, many others. He has written for the Mark Twain Awards, honoring comedy legends such as Bill Murray, David Letterman, and Will Ferrell. He has written comic speeches for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the former head of the CIA, Robert Gates, as well as a vice president of the United States who he refuses to name. Tom's new musical, Kip and Sylvia, tonight on D-Deck, has been playing to sold-out audiences at New York's Triad Theater, and will be presented at Long Island Suffolk Theater on July 14th. Tom lives in New York City and Connecticut with his wife Barbara and with an occasional daughter or two. Frank Santopadre. A dearly beloved figure. Frank Santopadre is an Emmy-winning writer of talk shows, specials, award shows, roasts, animated series, and even bubblegum cards. He produced and hosted 639 episodes of Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast. And he's still hoping to avoid being named in a defamation lawsuit by the estate of Cesar Romero. Lastly, Drew Friedman. Drew Friedman is the artist about whom the film you just watched was made, so I'm not sure there's any need to go into detail. I I will just add that on a personal note, that when I first saw Drew's work in high school, I happened to stumble across a cartoon of his in Heavy Metal magazine, which is about Larry Fine having a terrible nightmare. I found it to be such a bizarre, anomalous joy in the magazine. I've been a fan ever since. So now there's obviously much more to say about these very accomplished people, but I will only add one thing, and that they all have in common is that they all appeared on Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast.
Were you on that?
Which, if you're not familiar with it, is an unsurpassed resource on the history of comedy and popular entertainment in America. It is also an absolute joy to listen to, and I recommend it unreservedly.
God bless you.
Okay, Jews and others. All right, there is such a plethora of important topics to talk and discuss before we get into burning issues like Jessel, like Perfecto Telez. I think it's best to begin with Kevin, director of tonight's film.
Hello.
One, I want to know who created that title, and what was the genesis of this film? How did the project start? And will I continue to receive GoFundMe requests?
First, I want to know what a plethora is. What is that exactly? I mean, you're using the word, but you don't know what it means.
It's a lot of stuff.
All right, just say
It's like a catheter.
Who made the title, Vermeer of the Borscht Belt?
You're Romanian.
That's Stephen Heller gets credit for that, right?
Well, yeah, he used that phrase in his review of old Jewish comedians in the New York Times, Steve Heller.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it doesn't really work because I've been to the Borscht Belt maybe 3 times in my life, and I wasn't really even familiar with Vermeer, aside from the girl with the pearl earrings, so, you know.
There's a Penn Jillette, and Penn and Teller did a movie about Vermeer, a guy who did a Vermeer, and it was like, we got a lot of shit, but we'd already committed to the title Vermeer of the Borscht Belt. So it was called Tim's Vermeer was the other film, about a guy who tried to recreate Vermeer's work, which really doesn't have any relationship to Drew's work. Even like, you know,
No, I don't really even like it that much, you know, to be
everybody
honest.
talks about Surratt and the little dot stuff.
Well, that makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah, so that I could see. But, it was
But maybe you guys should have talked about it before.
Ben Vereen. Ben Vereen.
You guys
would
talk
play
about
in
it
New
at all
York.
before you
You
titled?
know, I gave Kevin suggestions early on, then I backed off.
he wanted to call it Jew dots, and I was like, I wasn't against it, but we committed to Vermeer the Borscht
Jew
Belt.
dots. Also, the title Drew I thought was a good title because it's a double meaning title, obviously, but you know maybe a little boring. Jew dots I liked, but some might be offended.
Do Drew with an exclamation point like Dinah Shore. Yeah, that makes it better. Or Cher.
Well, you know your stuff.
Yeah, well.
It's good to hear a Dinah Shore reference.
Hey,
That's like how we're still
what I'm here
there.
for.
We're not even up to here. We're not even up past Dinah Shore.
Last panel we did here was about 8 years ago about Jewish comedy, and 45 minutes of it was just dedicated to Milton Berle's schlong.
That's correct.
So,
As it should be.
I have a feeling we're going to get to that again, so just hold on.
Be patient.
Okay, again, the genesis of the film.
The genesis of the film, I know Drew for a while. I was a big fan of his work, and I guess we'd worked together before. I was designing kids stuff, interactive stuff, and I hired Drew, and Drew said, I'll do it because you're a fan, but don't ask me to deal with any of the people in the office kind of thing. And actually, that's how I hooked up doing stuff with Gilbert. And I always wanted to do like a documentary about a visual artist, but it's like hard. And I was friends with Drew, so I didn't want to ask him. And then I finally said, well, you know, Jack Kirby's dead. You know, I wanted to somebody who's still alive and vibrant and important. And I think it was time, you know. And I think I always had Drew's been in a couple of documentaries before, and technically I always thought the artwork always looked, it was really hard to get artwork on video to look good, especially the older stuff. The older stuff just screams, don't put this on old VHS tape. Like there's a couple of documentaries you've been in where it's like a big smear. So I wanted to do something kinetic and vibrant and funny. I wanted to do a funny documentary. There's not a lot of funny documentaries, so that's what I was shooting for.
Well, artists are usually pretty shy and quiet and reserved and withdrawn. So, maybe I'm not, I can be like that. But I think, a documentary about an artist or an illustrator is like a really boring idea because mostly, we just sit and draw and like in silence, maybe with the radio on.
Well, they want to see you have warts and all, and it's like. I just saw a thing with. Did you see the thing, somebody interviewed Gary Panther? It was a very strange avant-garde thing, and he was so not weird that I was kind of disappointed. I expected to be so much weirder.
I think you get less weird as you get older. That's my theory. And Gary Panther's in his 70s now, and he's just like less weird now.
Like I wanted him to be weird.
Is Crumb less weird?
Crumb is
he's
like
just very accessible and sweet and normal, and he's not low key anymore. He likes to talk. He's not shy.
he's curmudgeonly, but in a nice way. He was so much fun. And so it's just like talking to a guy. You're thinking, oh, it's like talking to fucking Yoda, and then suddenly it's like. Oh, he's there eating a ham sandwich in front of me. It's that guy eating a ham sandwich, and he was really nice. He was really funny too.
All right. So one of the common threads that comes up in connection to Drew and his work is humor. Sometimes it's absurd, sometimes it's morbid, sometimes it's both. So what is this sort of deep-seated fascination with freaks, oddities, comedians, and Jews? And what is the relationship between all of those things?
I think everybody here is sick of me at this point, and I don't think I should say any more because it's in the film more. I think these guys should
This was a great preview. When does the film actually come out?
And why do you put Jews behind freaks? Why can't they even get better billing? Freaks,
Yeah.
quadriplegics,
that wasn't us.
serial killers. Jews. Look where you are, my friend.
Yeah, Eddie, how do you
Rabbi.
explain that?
Rabbi, where are you?
But I think these guys should, I don't know what they should, I'd rather talk about George.
all of you guys, let's start with Richard, who's lonely, looks so lonely there at the end.
Lonely? I'm not. The reason why I sat here is because I know as much as everybody else in this room, and that I'm up here. I love your art. I'm astounded at your art. I have so many questions, and when I heard that you take so long to stipple, I go, I had a feeling it did.
That's why you separated yourself from everybody?
I wasn't going to ask. You don't ask an artist, wow, how long does it take you to do a portrait? It takes a long time. So that movie answered it. I also happen to love what you draw, as I have a feeling everybody else in this room does. So that I'm up here is because I've been on TV. There's no reason for me to be up here.
Well,
You're
what is the connection? What's the connection between that and the arrogance of sitting all the way over there on the other side?
For a while, I had a solo show for 3 minutes. No, but and when I hear you talk, especially on the podcast, when we really delve into the stuff that we loved as kids, and we're the same age, and who we loved on Ed Sullivan, and who we used to watch, and these were who we were raised with, and then I talk to my fucking kids who have no idea who any of these people are. I can't stand them. I just want to say, and you're we have a simpatico with what you love and what I love, and so I just love looking at this stuff. So that's why. That's why. I said it.
Who are you wearing tonight, Richard?
So, Richard, Frank, Eddie, but when you guys were kids, did you love Jimmy Grippo?
No, Jimmy Grippo, he came later. It was like someone we discovered on Facebook, I think.
He was a national celebrity, was he, Jimmy?
Jimmy Grippo, in Las Vegas, he was a celebrity. It doesn't quite count.
Was he like on Carson? I don't really know him except from people.
No, he was
fun
like
of him.
this comedian. I picked up on him because he has this gigantic toupee on his head, and that was enough.
But he was a magician, too. He was
a magician. He was a famous magician. He was,
Did you know who he was?
Yeah. But he had this gigantic toupee and these Swifty Lazar glasses on. So he was just like he just drew me in. I knew nothing about him, but I said, oh my God,
I have a question.
that head.
Do you love magicians?
Good question.
Just depending on what they look like. I'm not really fussy about it. I'm not a big fan.
But no, I mean, you love monsters and the people in monster movies. I happen to love magicians, and I was just curious. You seem like somebody who might like magicians.
I'm fascinated by Kreskin because I've heard so many sordid stories about the guy.
You've drawn Ballantyne, Carl Ballantyne.
Yeah, well, he was more of a comedian than I knew him when I was a kid.
Yeah,
a little bit.
more of a comedian. But Kreskin used to hide. I don't know. This isn't about takes it off you for a second, but Kreskin used to hide his check somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
And he'd do his show.
Sure.
And at the end, I have no idea where my check is. And then at the end of the thing, he'd find his check at the end of the show.
Magic is like a thing for kids. Magic is like an entry-level showbiz thing, like a lot of kids did before, like rock and roll, and they had stuff to do. You'd see a lot of kids. Did you have a magic kit when you were a kid?
Sure.
Marshall Brodeen.
Oh, Marshall Brodeen. That was the TV magic.
TV
guy.
magic cards.
Richard says I love monsters. I'm very selective about who I like, and like Gilbert too. It's like we like certain horror movie actors, Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr.
especially, and Onslow Stevens,
John Carradine.
John Carradine, Bela Lugosi, but later Bela Lugosi.
Maria
So we're very
Ospinskaya.
selective, of course.
Of course.
Lon Chaney Jr.
It's the same with Jewish comedians. I don't like them all. I love drawing them. I love their faces, but I don't necessarily. I never found Red Buttons funny.
No one did. No one ever did.
Oh, well,
He never got a dinner, and I never found.
that was funny. That was his only funny thing.
Red Skelton?
I never got a dinner.
Did you find Red Skelton funny?
Not a Jew. Not a Jew.
Yeah, I know.
No, very annoying. Very annoying. You just wanted it. I'd watch him when I was a kid because he was on TV. It was a nightlight.
Right,
But
right.
He's always doing sad stuff too, like
never
Freddie
a
the
big fan.
Freeloader. Like he's always doing sad, poignant stuff.
Yeah, but I also heard he had the largest pornography collection in Hollywood.
He did, yes.
Think about that.
I know.
So why is he so sad?
He's such a sweet guy, and good night and God bless. But
Next to Bud Abbott's collection.
I gotta watch Toilet Teens now.
supposedly the largest pornography collection, according to the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was Red Skelton, Bud Abbott, and Lou Costello.
Really?
Yeah.
He doesn't work blue, but he lived it.
But it's disturbing to think of Red Skelton watching pornography.
How would that go, Drew?
What was he doing? Well, I got to draw that. What was he doing with his hands?
And then, of course, who's he watched from Car 54?
Oh, Joey Ross.
Joey Ross. There's
Well, he only married prostitutes.
Correct.
Like 11 of them in total. And he would divorce them when he realized that his wives were screwing his best friends. And he would get upset. Like he never saw that coming. We had to find a new whore.
Gilbert said it was frustrating for Bud Abbott when he was in the wheelchair because he couldn't reach the porn on the high shelf.
Sad. That makes me sad.
It brings a tear.
Well, that's the flip side of all the fun. That's what hurts these people into art.
There is. You mentioned Ed Sullivan before, but I'd like to introduce a few people in the audience.
Please do.
Ed Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan's here.
Well, we have a couple.
Ed Solomon. Ed Solomon.
Ed Solomon. His wife is actually Jewish, so. Selma? Sylvia, yeah, right. Anyway, we have a show business legend here, and I'd like to just acknowledge that. The great Bill Persky is here.
Yeah, bravo.
You made it.
Bill, of course, wrote for and produced the Dick Van Dyke Show, That Girl, Lots of Luck, Kate and Allie, and he wrote possibly the best sitcom episode ever in That's My Boy, the Dick Van Dyke episode. And I'd like to introduce one more person in the audience. I could go on and on, but Ziggy Gruber from Texas is here. Ziggy was the star of an incredible documentary called Deli Man about delicatessens in the United States. It was a great documentary, but it centered on Ziggy especially, and he flew all the way in from Houston for this. So. Let me just one more, if you'll just indulge me. You know him, you love him, a New York legend, Bob Greenberg is here.
Bobby
New
Greenberg.
York legend. Take a bow.
There you go. How about that?
Thank you, Bob.
May I introduce someone as long as we're doing introductions?
You most certainly may.
I was going to suggest we introduce Billy again, because
Yeah. By the way, Billy went to the
how much I
prom with
love Bill
Maria Uspenskaya. Yeah.
that girl. No, okay.
My partner in crime is here, Drew Gottfried.
And Darren Gilbert's daughter, Lily, is here, too.
Yes, and Lily. Beautiful Lily.
And Lily
Budding
made a
filmmaker.
fabulous documentary about Gilbert's artwork. Gilbert Gottfried's Secret Talent, which is great. A short documentary.
It's on YouTube.
It won
It's
a lot
very
of
good.
awards, and it's great. I'm in it, and Penn Jillette is in it. It's terrific. So check that out. Tom, would you like to introduce anybody here?
Bill Persky.
Could you put the lights up? And
I don't know anybody. Well, I'd like to introduce my daughter. I love her as much as if she were biologically related to me. She's right over here. She is biologically related to me. My daughter, Gussie Leopold. There you go.
You know, we could have the entire audience just introduce
I
themselves.
have to give a shout out. Dan, where's Dan Schlissel from Stand Up Records? He's way in the back. And my homeboy Tom, Johnny Beatstew over here, they were instrumental in this thing happening. So there. Okay.
well, now I'm seeing faces I want to introduce.
Yeah, you know what? How about Kathy?
Anybody else?
You want to
Can I-
introduce Kathy?
Where's Kathy? She was supposed to be up here. She chickened out.
Kathy's in the film.
She's the head of the movie.
Kathy Bias.
Baywatch, beautiful. I'm gonna embarrass some people, but you know, it's okay. Sam Viviano is here.
From Mad Magazine.
From Mad Magazine. Who else?
I think I see Morty Gunty
Morty Guthrie?
in the back.
You do? I see my dead grandmother.
Yeah. Morty.
Kevin, why don't you introduce?
Who else do I have to introduce? I got Dan Schlissel from Stand Up Records, like I said, and Tom. Tom, stand up. Tom, this is Johnny Beatstew.
Johnny
Tom
Beatstew.
Savilla. If you're in Plains, Pennsylvania, you got a parking ticket, he's the commissioner. You want to talk to him.
Very good.
And he's got a book coming out tomorrow, but we're not here to promote your goddamn book, Tom. You can do it on your own time.
Tom is one of the main producers, which means he drives Kevin around.
Yeah. He drove me here tonight. Thank you very much.
But may I say though that you know me. I find human emotion disgusting, but I wanted to just say that was so beautifully. I mean, apart from your great art, but I mean, it was perfectly made for it matched that world of what Drew does. I just think
Thank you very much.
the editing and just everything was so,
Thank you.
was in the right hands.
This is the first time I had seen this film, and I think I was happy with it. Overall, I don't know why. Mark Maron. Yeah, it's the first time. Mark Maron says Thor, which offended me when I first.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Kevin corrected that, I think.
Was that a cheap shot? I don't know.
No, it was good. It was good.
I was like, is that a dig? I was, I didn't want to.
What if he has a sibilant H?
I tried to edit that, I tried to get like granular. Maybe I could just take that.
No, it's perfect the way it is.
Yeah, the asterisk
You
works.
solved it.
It's good.
It's also nice to see your dad up there. I mean, the film is also a little bit of a tribute to your father's work. And if I may, and it's beautiful to see the two of you.
I always love seeing him on. It's towards the end of his life. He wasn't doing well. But of course, before the film, before Kevin showed up with his crew, I told my dad, you're going to be filmed, and he completely forgot he was going to be filmed, which is why he's just wearing a jumpsuit. He didn't put a jacket on. But that, I forgive him for that. But it was great to see him. And Bill Persky again worked with my dad back in the '70s on a great project, and they were friends too. So, it's like old home week here.
Could either your mom or dad draw at all? Were they artistic like
My
that?
mother was artistic. She used to paint. She didn't pursue it. because she would start one thing and then lose interest and do something else, basically. But yeah, she used to paint, and so I actually received my rapidograph pens because she had a boyfriend. After my parents' divorce, she had one boyfriend who all of a sudden died. So he had a collection of art supplies, so it was all given to me. So I just started experimenting with the rapidograph pens. They fascinated me.
Wow.
And that's when I started doing the stipple.
Explains a lot.
It does.
But by the way, because I've been lucky enough to go to Gilbert's house, and his artwork on the wall is very similar to your artwork when you were drawing on your notebooks.
Right. Very similar.
I know. I was shocked by that, and that just surprised
We
me.
were just obsessed with faces, just just cramming as many faces into a page.
Right.
Borderline legal action, possibly.
And like Gilbert, I didn't really communicate well with fellow human beings. We were, basically misanthropes. So, we just you could see that reflected in our work. But in Lily's documentary, I talk about Gilbert's artwork. It's very similar.
It's shocking.
And also, we both threw in the Marx Brothers and Three Stooges and things like that. So,
That's what I wasn't referring. Yes, that's true. The things that you were both interested, but I mean the style and you pack them all in on a sheet.
It's like kids draw, but most kids will stop at a certain point. I'm different because I just kept going. I didn't stop because that's basically all I was interested in doing. All I was good at doing. I don't know where I'm going with this.
So, may I just say, and then I got to get out. No, I'm just kidding. I got to bus. It's the inflation that's killing everybody, I'm a comedy writer, and so before I even knew who Drew was, when I was growing up, around 15 or we were all I was so amazed that there were so many other people in this world that loved these same kind of people. But before I ever heard of Drew, the greatest short story I probably have ever read was "Let's Hear It for a Beautiful Guy," written by your father, right? That was the first one. I thought, my God, there's other people who think Sammy Davis is. Yeah, they kept saying, love him, hate him, laugh at him, admire him, laugh at him, feel bad about laughing at him. And that was all it was called. Let's Hear It for a Beautiful Guy. And
you brought that up when we first talked on the phone, before we got to the subject of Danny Thomas.
But
it was a short.
It wasn't long though before we got to
that's
Danny.
Right. It was a piece about Sammy Davis, just needed to take some time off. So my father wanted to arrange that Sammy go to New Jersey to stay with his sister in Fairlawn for a week.
He had it because Sammy worked so hard and did so many benefits. This guy in the story says, "I'm going to kidnap Sammy and make him relax."
Basically,
and he's done so much for us.
There was a quote in Earl Wilson's column that just says, Sammy Davis Jr. is trying to take off a week, from his schedule. So my father picked up on that and expanded that.
But that's your humor. But that is the same. That is the same kind of umbrella of what you do.
When Josh and I did a comic strip about Morgan Fairchild, she wanted to escape from Hollywood just to get away from it all. So she moved in with Marnin Rosenberg in Great Neck, Long Island for a week. And we did a whole comic strip about that.
Who are they?
This guy, Marnin Rosenberg, who lived in Great Neck, a friend of ours. She gave up her career to move to Great Neck to spend a week with him.
Exactly.
Wasn't he a carpet salesman?
Right.
Martin Rosenberg?
Yes, he became a carpet salesman. Yes.
I remember your work.
Can I ask a question? Two-part. Number one, you've met a lot of the people who you've drawn. Who loved their picture and who absolutely hated their picture?
Well, yeah, I was asked to draw Harvey Weinstein plenty of times back in the day. Okay. And I always felt guilty about what I was doing to him with the pockmarks and the fat bloated face. And then eventually I didn't feel so guilty after.
But also Woody Allen, right?
Woody Allen was offended because he wrote a piece for the New York Observer and they asked me to illustrate it. And I really played up the freckles in his head, in his face. He was writing about the New York Knicks, which he loved. So he did one piece for them. After he saw the drawing, he said, "I'll never work for the New York Observer again," based on that drawing. He had his sister call Peter Kaplan at the Observer to deliver that news.
Right, but
and again, eventually I didn't feel so bad about offending Woody Allen.
But those were freckles or liver spots?
Yeah, I don't know the
It's
difference.
combination of things. It was like it was freckles. It was freckles because they fade as you get older. I've studied this.
But he had his sister call you. He had his sister
His
call.
sister Letty called, who
That's
was
it.
his producer at the time.
That's
What
good.
about Jack Carter, to answer Richard's question?
Yeah, well, as far as Jewish comedians, when the first Jewish comedian's book came out, I started getting phone calls from Jerry Lewis, Freddie Roman, Mickey Freeman from the Bierko show, and I was like elated. And then a friend of mine interviewed Jack Carter about the book, and he hated it. He said, "Oh my God, that face he gave me, and all those liver spots, and he combed over my hair. I'm not going bald." He was just offended, and he said, "He should draw me again." That's what he said. One per customer. So. But I was thrilled that a lot of those guys, just loved, especially Jerry Lewis, who just called it, "Drew, I love the book." He's like, and then he started calling me, "Drew, what are you working on?" Like that. And he says, at one point he goes, "Drew, how do you do what you do?" And I said, "Jerry, I can't answer that. How do you do what you do?" And he accepted that. He was happy with that. So.
Oh. I have a story. Just if you grow up in New York, I mean, my affinity for Drew, it was natural. It was in the blood, because if you grew up in New York watching WOR-TV, which I swear was noir television, it had like a half a watt, so that it was really arguably radio, and late at night, my Nana Stephanie used to let us stay up and watch Joe Franklin, that was 1,000,000 o'clock at night. And Joe Franklin, the great Joe Franklin, who was might as well have been a Beatle to me, because I just was so fascinated. And when I met Drew, he introduced me to, introduced me to Joe Franklin. I want you to bring this story home, because you tell it better than I do.
Well, I'll keep it brief, but Joe did sue me for $40 million back in 1984, and the lawsuit was dismissed. It was about a comic strip about him shrinking, and he was very, very sensitive about his height. So I crossed the line with that one. But the lawsuit was dismissed, and then 25 years later, when the Friers gave me a party for my first Jewish comedian books, who walks in but Joe Franklin? And I went up to him and said, I embraced him, I hugged him. He said, "Drew, I love your book. I love your book. How come I'm not in it?" I said, "Well, you're not really a comedian. You're a funny guy." Little by little, I realized he didn't remember that he sued me for $40 million.
But the wallet, too. The wallet also.
Yeah. And then, but I became friendly with the guy, and I started going over to his office on 43rd Street, West 43rd, and I bring friends. I brought Craig and Owen Klein to visit, and then Craig can tell the story about his wallet.
I pushed it over to you because but he gave me his card, and I just thought, this isn't going to stay in my wallet. This is getting framed and mounted, and everyone I ever meet will see this. This is Joe Franklin's card. Because I am who I am, wallet lost that afternoon. And I just said, awful. I felt awful, and I thought I couldn't tell. But I got a telephone call. Was it from you, or was it from the
From the New York Post?
The New York Post, that the wallet had been found, and the only card in the wallet was Joe Franklin, so they returned it to his office. And I got a call from Joe Franklin's office that I have your wallet. But it wasn't him. It was Townsend probably who was made the call. I think.
Michael Townsend, yeah.
Yeah, Michael.
Is Michael? Yeah.
Michael here. And Drew, because Drew is Drew. Drew said, "Let's not waste this. Let's make this a special," because it was around Thanksgiving, so we made it a very special Thanksgiving story. And there's a big spread in the New York Post of him handing me my wallet. And it's I got to revisit his office.
Joe's card had a caricature of Joe on it, rendered by Al Hirschfeld. And I later found out Joe paid Al Hirschfeld $10,000 for that portrait.
And you would have done it for $5, right?
I would have done. Yeah, I drew Joe many times, but he didn't want my artwork on his card, which I don't blame him.
It'd been funny though if whoever found the wallet left the money and just took Joe's card. You know what I mean? I'd want to know that.
I would have.
I'd want to know that.
I would have, yeah.
That's who I got to be friends with.
Remember money?
Money.
Sorry.
Do we want to open this up to questions from the audience?
I do have one question. Did you have a relationship with Al Hirschfeld? Did you know him well?
No, I never met him. No.
You never met him?
No.
That surprises me.
No. I mean, I was a huge fan, of course.
Sure.
Not everything, but
Right.
But no, I never met the man. I've met a lot of, like I said in the film, it's dangerous to meet your heroes, but I've had luck with that. All the mad guys, the old mad guys like Mort Drucker, Al Jaffe, beautiful, wonderful men, all of them across the board, just the nicest people. And so, I have, and Robert Crumb is my hero as far as cartooning goes, and we've become friends over the years. So I've had luck with that stuff, but I'm still like careful about meeting my heroes. It can backfire.
Before we open it up to the audience, I just wanted to ask Kevin one more question. Did anyone refuse to be in the film?
There was one person who was really hard to get, but she finally appeared in the film. And she was very funny. It's Drew's wife, Kathy beat us.
Okay.
Nobody said no.
Can I add one more? Can I just add one thing?
What?
A lot of the film celebrates Drew's talent as a craftsman, as an artist, as an illustrator. But I'd like to point out, and I'm not blowing smoke up your tush, he's a great comedy writer.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful satirist, and the work that he did with Josh and Kathy later, seek it all out because the books,
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind my saying that.
No,
It's like the ideas.
Keep going.
Yeah. I was just saying the ideas are as funny as the art.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're both. It's like Warhol in a way. It's like the idea is bigger. Is as big. I mean, the art is equal to the idea, which is.
That's what attracted me. I mean, it was the art, but you open up a book and you see William Bendix sightings.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And William Bendix is appearing randomly at people's windows. And I thought, this is like Gilbert. I will compare you to Gilbert because it's a kind of humor that is so unique and so specific
daring,
that
too.
like Tom said with the Sammy thing.
I also point out in the film,
You want to be in that club.
I just want to, I'm not interested in the audience necessarily, just interested in pleasing myself. Back when I was working with Josh, we were just doing comics for ourselves and our friends to show them. I wasn't even thinking about getting published necessarily at the beginning with the Andy Griffith piece and stuff like that. And then little by little stuff builds up and it's like people start paying attention. That's why Spy contacted me to be in there. And that opened up the floodgates. But, at first it was just like, I feel like drawing this and I'm not even thinking about getting paid for it necessarily.
Sure.
And so,
Well, find the old books and just look, of course admire the art, but look at the humor. Look at the writing in, John Wayne in Dawn of the Duke. When there are no more gooks in hell, the Duke will stalk the earth.
Or Buddy Rich, Buddy Rich.
And the Buddy Rich. And all of that stuff. And, of course, the incredible Shrinking Joe Franklin. And
Joey Heatherton.
Game show hosts walk among us. And all of that stuff. That's what drew me in was the comedy writing.
Right, or Desi Arnaz and William Frawley.
William Frawley.
That was actually a Howard Stern script, that appears in his book, Private Parts. And Kathy actually broke it down into panels for that piece.
It's a great point.
It was possibly the most disgusting piece I've ever done. It was like a naked William Frawley, naked Desi Arnaz, having sex with young boys, basically, is what that sums it up. It's horrible.
Nobody's saying that. That's right.
It's not right. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it now.
I always think that maybe in the early days, it's like that's what's so Kathy. I mean, you give your BM, your beautiful mate, her due. Like in the early days, like you would be down there, right? How much longer are you going to draw William Frawley before you come up? I mean, the patient's like, I've got 4 more hours of William Frawley to draw, but
That was the thing. We lived on 6th Street
I know.
between in a little tiny apartment.
That's a good wife.
And our bed, the bed was close to my desk, so she would hear me tapping all night, rendering William Frawley's head, you know. And she was trying to get to sleep because she was going to work the next.
They're the forgotten heroes of illustration, the wives.
But that was the setup, basically.
Yeah.
But you were lucky because there's no denying the greatness of your art. But you can do that, and there are a lot of people who will not like your humor because they don't know who William Bendix is, or they don't know who Tor is. So you can go out and do all of that stuff. They're still going to look at your pictures because they're phenomenal.
It's like, I only, sorry. When I used to draw Tor Johnson, like I knew who he was. I had friends who knew who he was, and then I got a phone call from Eddy Gordetsky in Canada. He was writing for SCTV. And he said, like, oh my God, I didn't think there were other people on the planet who knew who Tor Johnson was.
That's what I mean.
Connects everybody.
So, not that any of that is important, but I just picked up on that stuff.
Well, you're drawn into an exclusive club, and I think the people here feel like they're part of that club as well, because they appreciate what we appreciate.
It's like finding out you had a relative you didn't know about, you know?
Yeah, who you never want to see again.
That doesn't ask you for money.
All right, so why don't we open it up to the audience? We have Julia walking around the microphone, so take one and ask a question.
Hi, Drew. It seems like relative to the number of men, you don't draw too many women. Is it possible that it's because women go to some effort to look nicer? Also, could you answer as old Groucho?
Well played.
Gilbert's not here. Well, I only drew the fringe because Chico needed the money. Drawing attractive people has always been difficult for me. I'm attracted to, like I said in the film, my wife is beautiful, but it's just I can't relate to beautiful faces, and I'll never draw Brad Pitt, so just like I like faces that you can see like the lives they've lived like etched into their faces, which is why I like drawing older people. Although I'm getting old now too, so now I'm reverting back. I'm drawing younger people. I'm drawing comedians when they were younger.
Have you drawn a self-portrait?
Well,
Right here, looking back at you.
Idiot.
Yeah. But
Don't do that. No. Don't you dare do that. Don't do that to yourself. I'm pretty drunk. Don't do that to yourself. Anybody could have said that.
I have a book coming up called Shtick Figures with Gilbert Gottfried on the cover.
Yay.
And there are a lot of drawings of Jewish comedians I've drawn in the past as old men, but I've drawn them younger. So Sid Caesar is in there, and Arnold Stang, et cetera, et cetera. It's like now it's more of a challenge to draw people younger. It's like drawing old Jews with liver spots is just too easy now. So.
All right, do you have any other questions?
Hi, so who's sitting at your Last Supper, and who finds the matzah? Because after all, it was a Seder.
Good question. Sitting? Well, the obvious choices, I would assume, Shemp Howard, Pigmeat Markham,
Obviously.
Bobby Barber, Sammy Petrillo, Bob Greenberg,
Sid Melton?
Rondo Hatton, yeah, Sid Melton, yeah, the obvious choices. I need some. I know. Choices. Yeah, it's like there are 12 guys at the last.
Bill will ask the questions.
Yeah, but you know what?
You'll ask the three questions.
Who's Jesus and who's Judas?
Yeah. Let's go deep.
Can I get back to you on that one? Who's Judas? I guess Joe Franklin. That would make sense. He betrayed me by suing me, but we did become really tight friends. So it's like. It's kind of a stretch, but I don't know.
Is it a glass table?
Yeah, glass coffee table, of course. Perfect.
If you know, you know.
Perfect. Oh, we never brought up Georgie Jessel.
How would that happen?
I don't know, but
I mentioned it at the beginning, but it never went anywhere.
Tom Leopold has the best George Jessel.
Well,
if you can condense it.
Thank you so much. I'll try. It's hard to do, of course. It's like condensing, Moby Dick or something. But I was working on a TV show called The TV Show with Rob Reiner, Chris Guest, Harry Shearer, and I in the Valley in the 70s, just a one-off special. And all of a sudden, someone come running in like Kennedy had been shot, but it wasn't anything like that. It was, Georgie Jessel is going to be at 6 o'clock tonight in Long Beach doing a one-man show on the Queen Mary. It's now 3:30. And we were supposed to write this TV show. And Rob Reiner was the director and producer. He says, let's go. I mean, not even like anything, like, geez, it wasn't even like a hesitation. We're in the car, we're driving like mad to get to Long Beach to see Georgie Jessel. It's like still light out and everything. There's people going up the thing, and we're sitting there, and ladies, I'm trying to make it shorter, but hey, ladies and gentlemen, the Toastmaster, the lights come down. There's 6 people it's in the belly of the ship, the Queen Mary. It's in the theater of the ship, and there's nobody there except just people like this, and one woman just kept going I know. But so, ladies and gentlemen, the Toastmaster General of the United States, Mr. Georgie Jessel. And then over there, you hear music and stuff, and they wheeled him out. And he's got the Eisenhower jacket on, and all the medals from I don't know what battle it was. The Battle of, I don't know, Rusty Warren or something. Anyway, but so he comes out, and then he does the thing, I'll stop, but his classic thing, if those of you who remember Georgie Jessel, I'm sure most of you do, if you wouldn't be here, but he used to do this thing called Hello Mama. Remember, Billy? Hello Mama. It was about a young Jewish boy calling his mother and her trying to get him to date this Jewish girl that she met. Hello, Mama, what? You want me to come up to Mrs. Katzenman's apartment? Why? Why, you want me to meet a young girl there, Mama? And he hang out, that would be a bit. But now he's 95. And he's got like a fake phone there. And he goes, people want me to do the hello, Mama. Hello, Mama? And he picks up a phone. Oh, you want me to meet a girl? The guy's like got a tube and hooked up to a machine. It's like he's like 900 fucking years old. What, Mama? Oh, I'm sure she's a lovely girl, Mama. Meanwhile, his mama's got to be 161 years old. And the girl, forget about it. Who's the girl? How old the girl would be? But anyway, we got there, and God was good. And
beautiful.
And bucket list filled at that point. Everything else has been just gravy,
Beautiful.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Not about Jessel.
I guarantee this is not about Jessel. Okay, this is an easy law for whoever wants to hit the home run and finish this story or tell the story to this finishing line. Just take out enough to win.
Well, I think everybody in this audience will. It's like Forrest Tucker and Milton Berle had a contest. Supposedly at the Friers Club, there's a lot of different versions.
I heard the Hillcrest.
Oh, the story.
Right. Could have been in Los Angeles, could have been in New York. There's so many different versions. They both had to find out who had the largest penis. So it was Forrest Tucker and Milton Berle. They go into a bathroom.
They were legendary at this point about that.
So a few minutes go by. Milton Berle emerges from the bathroom, and somebody says, "So Milton, what happened? What happened?" He goes, "I only took out enough to win."
They used to say that in preparation for the Shabbos, Guy Marks, Forrest Tucker, and Milton Berle used to braid the challah.
That's great. There are other versions of the story with Huntz Hall being involved, possibly, who was also legendary.
Supposed to be Tom. I heard a Tom Jones version with Uncle Milty.
What's that?
Yeah.
Walter Pigeon.
It's possible Uncle
Pigeon,
Milty had
Van
a lot.
Johnson.
Yeah.
What, Tom Jones and Uncle Milty? How did that happen?
Also Eddie Fisher. But I think it's possible Milton had a lot of these contests. Not just. Not just one. He seemed to enjoy it.
He's a sporting man.
It's like when he was on Howard Stern's show, Howard only wanted to talk about his penis. And Milton would say, "Oh, Howard, would you grow up? Would you grow up?" And then Howard would change the subject, and Milton would bring it back to his penis. That's all he wanted to talk about, too.
Let's not shortchange Forrest Tucker. I refer to Richard's putting story about Forrest Tucker.
Right. Putting story and when he, yes, okay. Right. Well, you know that.
Any questions about the film?
Anybody else with
Anyone else?
a stupid question?
Your bedroom, the photos of your bedroom when you were a kid, how much of that stuff do you still have?
Maybe 20% of it. Most of it went into the garbage. There was nothing of value then. It was, I saved some of my comic books, and most of that was just ripped off the walls. We moved out of Great Neck in 1972, so I just threw it out for the most part.
But he has 4,000 pictures of Lou Jacobi through every phase of his life. It's a stunning thing, the Lou Jacobi archive. I don't know if it came across on film, but
it did. It's like I own. I own the man's archive
like this
somehow.
big, it's a stack.
And it's not mentioned in the film, but somebody found all that stuff in a dumpster in.
Oh, is that what it really?
In Georgia.
Oh.
In Georgia, somehow it wound up in Georgia.
Yeah.
Lou his wife had died a few years before him, and he had no children, no family really. So somehow he died, and then his belongings wound up with whoever was cleaning out his apartment on Central Park West back in the 80s or 90s. Somehow it wound up in Georgia, and then wound up in a dumpster,
Wow.
and then it wound up at a flea market where a cartoonist friend of mine discovered it, called me and said, "Drew, this comedian named Lou Jacobs." And I said, I don't know Lou Jacobs. And he looked at his stuff again. He said, "Oh, his name is Lou Jacobi." I said, "Oh, Lou Jacobi, yeah." He says, "Well, I'll send it all to you if you do a drawing for me." We worked all that out. So all of a sudden, 4 boxes arrived, UPS boxes, with just these Lou Jacobi mementos, archives, photographs, personal letters, photographs of him and his wife, all this publicity.
It's like thousands of things. It's like report cards from grade school. It's birth certificates.
Yes, it's too much. I mean, if anybody wants to create a Lou Jacobi museum,
That's it.
I'm the source.
All of I.
He's from, I believe he's from Toronto,
Yeah,
so
he's
I guess it
Canadian.
makes sense to have it there. But it's like I don't want to profit on it in any way. I don't want to sell it. It just should wind up in the right place at some
Well,
point.
YIVO might be an appropriate location for that.
I knew you'd say that.
It should be in Jacobi, Indiana, where it belongs.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our wonderful panel. Kevin Dougherty, Craig Bierko, Tom Leopold, Drew Friedman, Frank Santopadre, and Richard Kynes.
And thank Eddy. Thanks this guy, Eddy Portnoy. Thank you. All right. Turn my mic off. I don't want you